Cash flow is actually pretty simple. All the cash moving into and out of a business given a certain period of time. It kind of gets complicated when you get things like income statements and balance sheets and stuff, but it really is important concept because it helps a business person understand what they have or what they need, and they can only pay their bills with cash. So, their ability to pay bills and expenses down the road really depends on their ability to generate and have cash. Well, everybody has to pay taxes, so there's certainly, taxes on there. Insurance is usually something that's on there. The rent is usually on there. Utilities like electricity, water, sewer, revenues or income are going to be. Then you get into, are you going to allow some of those people to pay on trade? In other words, provide them 30 days credit. So then you have receivables, and then that gets into, how tight are you going to be with that? And that'll affect your cash flow. If you have employees, that's huge expenses associated with that and taxes with that. Quarterly taxes, depending on the community, there's B&O taxes, business occupation taxes, the whole tax deal, and your sales tax, if that's applicable in whatever community you're in. Those are things, certainly have to be kind of planned for. We have kind of a bunch of forms on our business online website, and many of our bankers in the rural areas certainly have an actual spreadsheet to make that easier to do. Certainly I think it can be overwhelming for somebody going into a business and try to, oh my gosh, figure out all the cash I have going to be coming in this month or all the cash going out that month, and looking at it in the future. But if you start and look at the template, I think it makes it a lot easier. Generally speaking, it's much easier when you put some thought and pin into it to kind of forecast your cash needs, in other words, expenses. To me, looking into the future, those are a lot more known. Certainly there's expenses and things that come up that are unforeseen, but I think that's a good place to start. Certainly in Alaska, typically the business is very seasonal, so you have tremendous amounts of cash coming in and expenses going out just before the summer season, and then during the summer season it comes in. So it really becomes maybe a problem that people don't foresee, especially in a new business, managing towards that seasonality in Alaska. First and foremost, I was saying doing a good, as best you can, cash forecast, and making that part of the program and their budget and actually looking at it. I think, secondly, having as much understanding as possible and as sophisticated as an accounting mechanism as possible to go online and view how you're doing relative to your forecast. Then, budgeting, whether it be extra cash or, really, that's kind of been our claim to fame in rural Alaska. All the branches and stores with people out there willing and able to help, have some expertise in that, to help a person put that together and establish a line of credit or have some financing in place to cover those type of expenses and stuff in the slow season. One is you get kind of lost in the shuffle with what you're when you're writing checks, in that it can be very easy to have a personal expense really be a business expense or vice versa. So there's no clarity in that accounting at all. So you really are kind of running blind as far as how well the business is performing. And then if you try to go do based on what you think the business has done, a forecast of what your needs are going to be, it'll be very difficult to put that together. Then you get down to the time you have to prepare your taxes, and obviously you want to identify all the expenses that you can. It gets also more challenging to specifically find maybe all those expenses or what those monies were actually business related or personal related. Sounds really, really easy. Oh, that could never happen, but it totally does. I mean, I don't even know if they sell Avon anymore, but that is probably maybe the best example where somebody's selling cosmetics from their home or kind of deal and just start doing it, or selling some product or use in the home, whether it be candles or baskets or something of that nature, and they just start dumping it in their personal account. Then, they get a check made out to a business name, their business name, and take it down to one of the banks. And many times the bank will say, legally you don't have an account with us for this entity. We can't accept that deposit. So that could be certainly a challenge too. And then as time goes on, if you start getting into doing things with wires and so forth, it gets more and more problematic the more sophisticated things you get. So any business should have a business account for taxes and for clarity of what your expenses are, and doing a kind of a budget in the future forecast. Most cases, it's just really a business license and ID, and then you get a tax ID number and go from there. So it's really pretty easy to do. Just about out of advice, I think. But really the biggest advice, and I think I said it probably at some time, is you just cannot do enough in the way of asking questions and planning and preparing to do the business, write a business plan. I think that's really, really key. Certainly at the bank, we talked about our bankers, and many over at their local chambers of commerce, the small business center here in Anchorage, or AEDC. Even there's lots out there. The universities, the colleges. There's online, all kinds of tools and ideas for writing a business plan, and I think that's a really good step for that too. And before we get anything going, as far as whatever licensing and things, we're doing that, I really encourage you to do and look into establishing the accounts, or at least a beginning savings and checking business account, to keep the first dollar that you make and the first dollar that you spend separated from other funds and resources that you have.